My early life growing up was spent in Houston, Texas, where I was born and raised in a suburb in northwest Houston. My dad was in the military, and he's a retired lieutenant colonel. My sister is 10 years older than I am. I came along, and then my brother is 10 months and 8 days younger than me. My sister, who's 10 years older than we are, went to West Point. And if you can imagine being an impressionable, 9, 10-year-old, and you see your sister go to West Point and you visit and you go to ring weekend and you go to graduation, at that point, you're not going to go anywhere else, really. You don't realize it yet, but once those seeds were planted, that was basically it.
So, I get service these days.
You remember the story about the seatbelt?
Oh, how can I forget? We were running a little late that day.
Thank you.
Running a little late that day, got in the HOV, and lo and behold, I was speeding in the HOV lane. And the HOV officer said he clocked me at speeding, and I didn't have my seatbelt fast. Not only was I speeding, but I didn't have my seatbelt buckled. So, you mentioned something about the seatbelt.
I looked over and I said, why are you getting pulled over? Because I didn't know about the speeding part, but I thought he saw you without the seatbelt. And I said, Dad, your seatbelt, you don't have your seatbelt on. And you looked down, you reached over and put it on as fast as you could, buckled it. And law enforcement officer, very kind gentleman, came to the side of the vehicle. He looked at you and he said, posed the question, okay, the question. Excuse me, sir. I saw you a few miles back, but did you have your seatbelt on a few miles back? And you did what I would expect you to do, and what you've always done, is you looked at the officer in the eye and you said, no, sir, I did not. And he said, okay. I mean, I don't know if I would have said that to risk a ticket, but in that moment and in that time, I think you understood the value of being an example, doing the right thing. And if you're willing to equivocate on something as simple as answering a question that a law enforcement officer asked you as to whether or not you did or didn't have a seatbelt on, then what else will you be willing to compromise and equivocate on later on in life? And those issues only get exponentially bigger with time. And the lesson that I always take away from that is that there's no point in wavering from doing the right thing or sacrificing your integrity over a ticket. Tickets can be paid, but once integrity is lost, it's lost forever.
Yeah.
Real game began after I graduated from West Point in May 29th, 2004. What's interesting about my class is that 9/11 happened September 11th, 2001. So I was a sophomore at West Point when that happened. The first 2 years of West Point are free, which means that up until the first day of class, your junior year, you can stay at West Point. It's paid for by the government. You owe no time to the government at all. And on that day, you are now what we call locked into service. Okay. And so 9/11 happened our sophomore year. So at that moment, we knew we were all going to war. Our class knew it at that moment.
You say that emergency vehicles are there, understandably so, but of course the major concern is human loss. I mean, do you know if there were many people in the building?
Another one just hit. Something else just hit. A very large plane just flew directly over my building, and there's been...
It's exploding right now. You got people people running up the street.
Okay.
I'll tell you what's going on.
I've never seen any. It looks like a movie. I saw a large plane, like a jet, going immediately headed directly into the World Trade Center.
It just collapsed as if a demolition team set off. When you see the old demolitions of these old buildings, it folded down on itself, and it is not there anymore.
That should be it.
Thanks very much. Completely collapsed.
Of the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center in New York, the second tower has collapsed.
What was remarkable to me was that happened, and my classmates, you talk about honor and integrity amongst the class, we pretty much all stayed, knowing that we were going to go to war soon, shortly after graduation. Couldn't wait to go, because at that point, I made an oath to myself, I made an oath to my country to serve it, and the honorable, right thing to do, no matter what, even if it costs you your life, was to honor that commitment. By God, I was going to get my opportunity to serve. Operation Iraqi Freedom was my first combat tour. Once you start flying, that's it. And so what our mission profile basically was, there were, at that time in 2006, there were 4 Apache helicopters, and that's 2 crews that flew over Baghdad 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had our call sign, they had our frequency. If something happened, a sniper, a bomb, an ambush, something like that, they would call us, give us their great coordinate, and we were already flying around Baghdad so we could respond almost, I say almost instantly, but as fast as we possibly could, depending on where they were. But our response time to that ground unit could mean the difference between a soldier seeing his mother and father again and their children or not. Understanding the weight of that responsibility, especially as a 24, 25-year-old young person, really translates to the weight that a lot of students may feel when they are put in a precarious position, and then how do you respond to that kind of stimuli? If you could imagine, especially in Baghdad in 2006, and the combat situation that was, there were a lot of ethical dilemmas, faced by pilots. One that a lot of my unit encountered on a, I wouldn't say frequent basis, but it certainly happened on multiple occasions, was the idea of what do you do when a building is protected, or when a group of people are protected by the rules of engagement, right? And how do you stay ethical and manage what the rules of engagement are in a combat situation? We know that there are friendlies, and we know that there are innocent men, women, and children that are in this mosque. And so the idea of using our destructive force to destroy that building might be legal, but is that ethical? It is our mission to make sure, to put it bluntly, that the bad guys stop shooting the good guys, because at the end of the day, we want the good guys to go home. But we also want to do it ethically. We also don't want to kill innocent people. And quite frankly, I don't particularly care where they're from. If they're innocent, they're innocent. I don't care what they look like. Okay? I don't care what language they speak. Okay? If they're innocent, they're innocent. And you don't have all day to make a decision there.
Our enemy forces are firing on easy elements. You want me to fire, sir? 30mm.
You have a split-second decision, and you have to think about things like, what if you inadvertently kill innocent people? What do you do? What if the media gets a hold of this? What happens? What happens to the hearts and minds of the environment, of the people that we are trying to help and save and protect, if we destroy their place of worship? Okay? Our guys may have gone home, but we may have caused far more damage. So you have to measure and weigh all of these decisions within seconds. And if you aren't grounded ethically, or if you don't hold yourself accountable and responsible for your actions, okay, then the consequences are far greater than they would be if you stay grounded and keep that ethical mindset. Service is giving more of yourself to a cause that's greater than yours. So doing that ethically is as important, okay? Is as important, if not more important, than the act itself. Because if you believe in selfless service, and if you believe in doing it right, you're also putting yourself in a position to be an example for others. You're putting yourself in a position to serve others. You're putting yourself in a position for other people to see you and recognize you as someone who wants to give back. If you don't give back ethically, then it defeats the whole purpose of the service itself. And so oftentimes you hear of nonprofit organizations, not-for-profit organizations, even some for-profit organizations that have been tasked to do a service to people and to the population. But what happens when you find out that there were ethical issues with it? Okay, all of a sudden that nonprofit comes under scrutiny and ire, and then it has to be shut down, and people end up going to jail. Why? And the intent was to do the right thing. Even though they were probably doing certain things that were unethical, right? People were still being helped. But it no longer mattered because maybe the president or the vice president or the CFO was taking funds and using it inappropriately. And then when that happens, it actually poisons the service itself. There's a movement in the world today, specifically with businesses, about corporate social responsibility. And it's fantastic to make sure that your return on investment is maximized and that investors are happy and that your board is happy. But we're getting to the point to where that's no longer enough. And what is that company doing for society itself?
2006, Blake Makowski saw extreme poverty while traveling through Argentina. He found that children kept out of school because they could not afford shoes. But he also got a look at the footwear used by the farmers. The soles are made of rope, and that inspired him to go home and create what we now know are Tom's shoes.
7 years later, his company has given away 10 million pairs of shoes to those in need, and now Tom's is selling eyewear and raising money to help restore sight.
As students go through school and finish school and go in the business world, at some point in the back of their minds, okay, how is this business making money is fantastic, okay? But the secondary and tertiary order questions are always going to be now, okay, so now that you made a lot of money, what are you going to do with that money and how are you going to help others? I'm seeing that more and more now within the last few years. And as a student, I wouldn't just go to a company or go into an interview or enter a realm without thinking about what ways can I use my platform? What ways can we use this company to better society and better our community? Yeah, I believe my father would have made the exact same decision, even if my brother and I were not in the vehicle, because that story is a testament to the character of the man that my father is.